Kevin Stefanski was put to the test, and he passed, but he's not out of the woods just yet. We'll talk about it coming up on the Locked On Browns podcast.
You are Locked On Browns, your daily Cleveland Browns podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, Dog Pound? I'm Spencer German, your host of the Locked On Browns podcast. I'm proudly covering your Cleveland Browns each and every single day in the land and on the road. Sunday was an important litmus test for the Browns and head coach Kevin Stefanski in particular. But there are more of those coming up along the way here of the schedule. The game plan was a necessary one given the conditions yesterday, but it should stick around moving forward. Plus, Grant Delpit is on his way to his first Pro Bowl season and maybe even all-pro season. We'll talk about it. I do want to thank you for being every day with the Locked On Browns podcast, making us your first listen every single day. Remember, you can find Cleveland Browns content with Locked On Browns every week, Monday through Friday, guaranteed. And today's episode is brought to you by PrizePicks. Download the PrizePicks app, use code LOCKEDONNFL, and get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. And I talked about it a ton post-game on Sunday in my episode of the podcast. But that game on Sunday against Miami was very much, in my opinion, a litmus test for the state of the team. I said it all week. The Dolphins were in shambles. They were experiencing a lot more turmoil than the Browns were. And if you lose to them, that would have said a lot, I think, about the state of the Browns, even though they tried to show this unified front in during the week of practice and all that. It would have said a lot about this team if they go out and they lost to that Dolphins team. They didn't. They didn't do that. And so what we learned was that this team didn't quit on Kevin Stefanski, that this team was more unified than maybe some of us thought, or that they were able to sort of rally around the outside noise and the situation and how things were unfolding in the 1-5 start of the season and still play hard for their coach. They weren't just quitting on him. Joel Bitonio shared after the game, and I know I played the clip here on the pod, that Stefanski sort of laid into them a little bit this past Monday after the team's lost to the Steelers. And honestly, that's a great thing to hear. Like, there's a constant conversation around Kevin Stefanski about whether or not he shows enough emotion, or he can kind of, even I think if I apply it to the games themselves, the idea that he doesn't always have a feel for the game because he doesn't like get emotionally attached to anything. I think there is a worry about that with him at times, that he doesn't necessarily, show that emotion. And it doesn't seem like he cares at times when he just comes to the podium and says, we got to be better. I got to be better. I think he takes the emotional part out of it. And I applaud him for that to a degree, because it takes a lot to be able to just kind of mask those things, not get too high, not get too low, let that be reflected on your team and in your team. I think that as a coach, you have to try to be as mild-mannered as possible. And I think Kevin does that to a T, and there's something to be said for that. He deserves credit for that. But at the same time, I do think sometimes you don't see that emotion. And so there's that disconnect, and people do wonder at times if he even has that in him. This story from Joel on Sunday speaks to the idea that is in there. There is an emotional guy in there. It comes out at times. He uses it as a tool to sometimes motivate his players. And as long as we know that's going on behind the scenes, I think that's important. And as long as we know it's working to motivate his players and get them playing at a high level and continuing to play hard and play for him, I think that's what's most valuable here. And that's why this game was a litmus test. I actually want to play you real quick. Kevin was asked about Joel's comments and the story he told about Kevin sort of leaning into them on Monday. I thought this was a pretty funny answer, especially from given where he obviously grew up.
Joel's not supposed to tell you that, Mary Kay. Yeah, listen, there's times when you message to your football team, or I should say this, I message the football team every single day, and there's sometimes you use different tools to get their attention.
And have you ever been that intense? The way he described it is that you gave it to them pretty good.
The Philly comes out every once in a while, yes.
The Philly comes out every once in a while, I think, is a great line. One of the best, I think, from Kevin Stefanski during his tenure. And listen, he said it. You use different things as tools to motivate your players. and get your message to your players. There is a level of this. It's like your message can't grow stale, right? How many times have we heard that conversation out of Pittsburgh, that Mike Tomlin's message has just grown stale and like some of the fans want to move on from him? Kevin, by doing this, I think showed that like his message isn't getting stale. He's still able to get through to guys in the way he sometimes ups the ante like he did last week. And that means something. That's a valuable thing that he still has the ear of his team. That's what I think we learned on Sunday, and that is super important to his time here, to his future here, to what's going to happen as the season continues. Now, what I will say, though, this week, that worked. This week, he got the results he needed. He staved off those conversations. His team put up and showed up for him, and they played hard, and it's a good sign that he hasn't lost the locker room. There are going to be other tests, though, ahead on the schedule that he's going to have to continue to show that he can do that, and that guys are still going to play tough for him. Even if the losses continue to pile up here, can he keep this thing afloat through the rest of the season? Every win helps. Every win helps stabilize things at different points in the season. If they had lost yesterday and it continued to unravel, who knows what sort of transpires from there? So yes, yesterday helped in a major way. I don't think he's totally out of the woods though yet. I said it after the game. For fans especially, feel good about this win. Feel good about the fact that your football team got a win. It doesn't erase everything that's going on behind the scenes and everything that's bubbling under the surface in relation to this regime and the failures that have got them to a point where they were 3-14 last year and are teetering or trending towards not having a great season this year. Those things are all going to come back up, and they're all going to be talked about when we get to the end of the season. We can have and even throughout, there will be other conversations to whether or not this is the right group moving forward to lead this team. And I think you're going to see those moments that when those conversations become more prevalent again, pop up at various times throughout the season. This next week's going to be a tough one. It's the Patriots. That team's really good. They're 5-2. They are leading their division, and Mike Vrabel has them playing physical football. That's going to be a tough game, and he knows all your trade secrets, right? Because he was here last year. Now, there are going to be other games, though, beyond this game, because I don't think this is – maybe at the beginning of the season we didn't know what the Patriots were going to be, and it was like, yeah, that could be a winnable game. I'm talking about the games that you go into, like we saw this past week, and you feel like the Browns have a legitimate good chance to win those games because they're playing a team that is actually inferior to them. The Dolphins were one. I think there's 3 more of these on the schedule. The Jets game, they haven't won a game yet. The Raiders game, they're a struggling football team that just got blown out yesterday. And the Titans game. Those are 3 other games on this schedule that the Browns absolutely positively should be able to compete in, should be able to win. If you lose to any of those teams, I think it's going to raise those red flags all over again that maybe Kevin Stefanski and maybe Andrew Berry aren't safe and that maybe a change is needed. Those are the games that are supposed to sort of show, as bad as things might be here in Cleveland, they could be a lot worse, and they're not the worst team in football, and guys are still playing hard. If you're still playing hard against those teams and winning the games that you should win, I think that speaks to there's still some life in this culture and this organization, and that maybe there's a reason to keep these guys around. But again, those are the litmus test games. Those are the games that are going to be sort of the gut checks, the reality checks for where this team is at, how hard they're playing, whether or not Kevin Stefanski still has their attention. Those games matter. So as much as he cleared this first hurdle, there are going to be others. Coming off a bye against the Jets, that is a game you cannot lose. Raiders, again, later this year, cannot lose. Titans later this year, cannot lose. There's others that you could throw in there and say, maybe you should win this one. The Ravens are a mess right now, but I think Lamar Jackson will be back by the time they play again in mid-November. The Bears game, they're sort of like a hot and cold team at times. They won yesterday. But so yeah, there's other games that you maybe hope the Browns have a chance in, but those are the other 3 that it's like if you lose to any of those teams, I think it's going to say a lot about you. For now, those conversations can kind of go to the back burner for a little bit, and it can be an exciting week to celebrate a Browns win and have some positivity around this team and something to build on. But do I think that he's totally cleared himself and is out of the woods? No, but I do think that yesterday was a big step towards showing that this thing isn't necessarily going completely off the rails. And as a coach, from a coaching standpoint, he really needed that. Speaking of Stefanski, the game plan yesterday in the conditions that were in downtown Cleveland was sort of born out of necessity, but that doesn't mean Kevin Stefanski should just get away from what he did yesterday against the Dolphins. We'll talk about it coming up on the Locked On Browns podcast. If you're a business owner, here's the truth. SaaS promised to make work easier, but now the average company is buried by hundreds of apps that slow down your teams and simply don't work. That's not SaaS. That's SAD. Software as disservice. That's why you need Rippling. Rippling is the unified platform for global HR, payroll, IT, and finance, all in one place. They've helped millions of businesses replace a mess of disconnected tools with one system designed to give leaders clarity, speed, and control. Everything from onboarding to payroll to IT access runs automatically and perfectly in sync. Whether you want to run your entire HR, IT, and finance operations as one or just fill in the gaps with your software stack, Rippling can do it all. And right now, you can get 6 months free when you go to rippling.com/LockedOnNFL. That's learn more at rippling.com/LockedOnNFL. That's rippling.com/LockedOnNFL for 6 months free. Terms and conditions apply. This episode is also brought to you by PrizePicks. Every day we make decisions, but at PrizePicks, being right can actually get you paid. Don't miss the excitement of this football season with PrizePicks, where it's good to be right. It is such a fun and simple way to follow along with the football season. All you have to do is pick more or less on player projections like Josh Allen's passing yards or Saquon Barkley's rushing touchdowns, and you're in the game. It's quick, easy, and honestly, one of my favorite ways to follow along with the football season. You can create your account in under a minute, and they've added a new feature, which I wish was a thing in real fantasy football. The injury reboot feature, where if your player leaves early and doesn't return, it won't count against you. Download the PrizePicks app today and use code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 in lineups after your first $5 lineup. That's code LOCKEDONNFL for $50 in lineups after your first $5 play. PrizePicks, it's going to be right. So I understand that yesterday, and Kevin Stefanski talked about this after the game, the idea that the Wildcat stuff was sort of born out of necessity because they knew what the forecast was going to be calling for on Sunday against Miami. And so they knew they were going to lean heavily into the run game and that was going to be the focal point of the offense. Now, what I want to, I'm not saying you got to necessarily only run the football like they did in that game and make that the complete and utter only thing that you're really trying to do and that you got to pull out the Wildcat every week or anything crazy like that. But I do think that there's a valuable there's a valuable thing to take away from that offensive game plan in that sticking with the run can work wonders for this team and that it is sort of the path forward for in terms of the strength that you bring to the table. I thought Wyatt Teller on Monday talked about this. I'll play you this clip here, but Wyatt essentially was talking about the success they had running the football and how valuable it can be for them moving forward. I thought this answer was pretty interesting. Here's
pass blocking. It's really cool. And, for lack of a better term, it's, the sexy way of winning a football game, but it's not fun. You're going backwards and they get to go forwards. And in case you guys didn't know, they're probably a little bit more athletic than us. So it's never fun going backwards against guys who want to rip your face off and then your quarterbacks. But it was nice to kind of put that pressure on them yesterday. We ran the ball, had a couple big plays, time of possession, good things were happening, and we put the pressure on them. Too many times, Joel and I were making a joke on the sideline. We've been in that situation where it's like, you're down by a couple scores. You got to pass the ball to win the game. Now, once it gets out of hand, let's run the ball off and run the clock down. Obviously, we want a chance to win, but if passing isn't doing it, maybe a long run or something. There was I think a play yesterday where they had like a draw for 21 yards. So sometimes it does work in the situation, but I'm just thankful that, coach, even though like we were talking about had, negative runs, he still was like, no, this is the plan we're going to have, unwaveringly, just we're going to, relentlessly just run the ball. And I love it. I feel like that's the formula of success for this team. We have a great defense, our special teams, great punter, great, we had a couple big plays yesterday where we got the ball out. I mean, it's just, if we can play like that every week now, I don't think we're going to get that many turnovers. And now that there was a bit of luck to that, but it was just like, that's how our team should have been playing from the beginning. And, we had a close, couple close games, but still, that was the win that, I felt we should have been doing or been playing. That's the way we should have been playing all year.
Teller mentioning that he appreciated Kevin's sort of stubbornness, if you will, to stick to the run. And again, I understand in those conditions, that was going to always be the game plan. They were going to run the football a ton, and that's obviously what they decided to do. But again, that is, but then he goes on to say, like, that's how we should have been winning and playing from the start of the season. We should have been this run-heavy team, focused on that, making sure that we're forcing the issue with the run game, and that is our identity on offense. Him saying that, like, the team knows that's their strength. The team knows that's what they want to pride themselves on, and they have this otherworldly player in Quinshon Judkins who can take a small hole and turn it into a big gain, or turn it into a 46-yard touchdown run like he did against the Dolphins. That is the staple of this offense. That is the bread and butter of what they want to do. And so they have to learn to stick with it. I thought that was another, as we talk about Kevin Stefanski sort of passing the tests, I also thought that you saw him learning sort of in real time from his own mistakes. Because the Pittsburgh game, he was asked a lot of questions on Monday and Tuesday last week about not using Quinshon in certain key situations down near the goal line. And, why he went away from the run so early when they were only down like 9-3. And it wasn't really this insurmountable lead for Pittsburgh. And I understand there's certain reasons why the run game isn't going to always work. Like even against the Dolphins, they were stacking the box because they don't feel the threat of the Browns pushing the ball downfield. There are other elements of this offense that they have to start doing more of to help that run game a little bit as well. But by and large, week after week, we find ourselves talking about this team and how the games are playing out in a way where it's like, hey, defense is so good. They're keeping you in the game. It's one score. It's just it's maybe a couple field goals, or they hold them where you're able to sort of stay within striking distance. You don't have to just abandon the run because you get down by a couple field goals, or you get down by maybe like one score, or even maybe two scores. If it's not 2 touchdowns, like if you're down 10, you can still sort of get yourself back into the game if you just sort of rely on what's got you here and what your bread and butter is and what makes you successful as an offense. And I think that's what Wyatt Teller is kind of giving credence to there. I understand that each game is going to be different. I understand that sometimes the run game's not going to be working at all, and you're going to have to drop back and pass. But the game plan in Pittsburgh and the game plan against the Dolphins were night and day difference. And I understand too, it's a matchup thing. Dolphins obviously were the worst run defense in football, so there was always going to be an emphasis on running the football against that team. And in Pittsburgh, though, like seeing Dylan Gabriel drop back 52 times to throw the ball, that is not a recipe for success. They have to find a way to strike that balance where they can maybe lean on the run a little bit more than they do, even if it's above a 50-50 split, but then also have the pass game sort of help that run game out and vice versa, and be able to sort of build off of that. I actually think too that you saw some success against Miami with Dylan Gabriel rolling out of the pocket, whether it was his own doing and he sort of was just eluding pressure and booting to his left and then throwing the football, or whether it was him, a design sort of boot play. Those are some of the better plays. And I'll talk about that a little bit more tomorrow with Lance on the episode of the podcast, and probably throughout the week as well. The idea that there's something there for Dylan to sort of build off of. But there's certain things that the run game and the pass game can complement each other. There's ways to set Dylan up for success. The run game, the pass game has to be a complement to the run game without question. And there's certain things they just can't do right now that make the run game, that allow everybody to sort of sell out for the run. That's not lost on me. But I also think like you can't just completely abandon what you do best or what you're supposed to do best and what your strength is, because you have this great running back in Quinshon Judkins. You got to be able to sort of stick to your guns, especially in close games. And by and large, this defense keeps you in many games that are close, even if it's against teams that you shouldn't really have a chance to beat. That's been the theme of the season, right? Miles, when he was talking about his frustrations of losing the same way, it all centered around the idea that the defense seems to do their job most weeks, and the offense just doesn't seem to really pick up the slack and hold up their end of the bargain. So I think it was a positive step in the right direction that Stefanski stuck to the game plan. Yeah, there were some bad run plays in there. It wasn't always perfect. It wasn't always pretty, but he stuck to the game plan. He kept feeding Quinshon. He got him 25 touches, and it worked to beat a team that you should have beaten, and they did it to a T. That has to be the theme moving forward. Keep feeding Quinshon. Keep banking on that run game, even when it's not working early on. And if the game is still close and not out of reach, don't just abandon it and feel like you got to throw the football a 1,000 times. with that said, I want to talk about the defensive side because there's one player in particular, Grant Delpit, who has been playing out of his mind this season. That was on full display. And when I watched the game back against Miami, man, he was awesome. And we're going to talk about how Jim Schwartz has used him in so many unique ways coming up here on the Locked On Browns podcast. Mazda crafts cars for those who do more than simply move. Mazda delivers confidence with every ride with more IIHS Top Safety Pick Plus awards than anyone as of August of 2025. They make cars that keep you and your family protected. From footwork, breathe work, athletes sweat all the details. Mazda brings the same intention to how they craft every model vehicle. You can feel Japanese craftsmanship in every detail, from metallic accents to Napa, leather upholstery, plus all-wheel drive is standard in every crossover SUV, so you can drive with confidence through any season, which, let's be honest, if you live in Cleveland like I do, that's perfect this time of year because you can pretty much get all 4 seasons in a single day. Like our players, we sweat every detail because when you make every move count, impossible becomes irrelevant. Mazda, move and be moved. This episode is also brought to you by FanDuel. The NFL season is here, and FanDuel wants to make sure you follow along all season long with this can't miss offer. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. There's nothing better than following an NFL season with FanDuel, and frankly, the best part is they have options for however you like to bet. Maybe you're a prop bet person. Maybe after Quinshon's 3-touchdown performance, you want to bet on him to go over a touchdown or 2 next week and eclipse a certain benchmark in that matchup with New England. Or maybe you want to combine that player's benchmark with a few other props and even a money line and build a same game parlay. You can even jump on the money line in real time as the action unfolds if you so choose. The options are endless, and it's what makes every game, whether your team is playing or not, even more exciting. So are you ready to play? Download the FanDuel app by visiting FanDuel.com to get started. That's FanDuel, and place your first $5 bet. So I think we would be remiss if I didn't spend some time talking about Grant Delpit and how incredible he's been this season, but also how incredible he was on Sunday against Miami. He was flying around and making just a ton of plays. It felt like he was in on so many different, key moments in this game where he was sticking his nose into making a play. The Rayshon Jenkins interception that set up the final Quinshon Judkins touchdown was one of those plays where he gets the pressure in the face of Tua. He throws the pick. Jenkins takes it back to the 2-yard line, and then the Browns punch it in a play later on the Wildcat play to Quinshon Judkins to score and put the game very much out of reach at that point. But there was other moments too for Grant where he was just, again, laying some big hits, flying around, playing physical. And this is like, if I don't know what it is this year specifically, but it just feels like Delpit is playing with like a very freeing mentality where he's never been like the best coverage guy, but when he's down in the box, when he can just go and make plays and run around and tackle guys and be that sort of assertive safety player that just kind of reads and reacts, he's been at his best. And this year, I think he's doing that at the highest level he ever has. It's been a lot of fun to watch, both in real time and then when I go back and watch the tape and see what he's doing and the impact that he's having. And you can tell other guys are feeding off of it as well. There was a number of times this week where you saw the Browns deploying 3 safety looks where Jenkins was playing sort of that slot spot at times and whatever else. And they've mixed and matched a little bit there. And I think when they have those 3 safeties out there, it allows Delpit to be even more just kind of like free ranging and go make the plays that he needs to make. And again, read and react the way that I think he thrives in. Jim Schwartz, by the way, was in his bag yesterday. And I think a lot of that started with the way that he used Grant Delpit, bringing him on blitzes, corners and DB blitzes. They were doing a lot of like simulated blitzes and showing something and then dropping other players. Alex Wright, I know, had to drop a couple times into coverage. And those things are all, just giving an opponent different looks, different things than you're used to showing. They also ran some different coverages yesterday than they're used to running. I actually want to play this comment from Alex Wright, who spoke to us on Monday as well. He was asked about Grant's play. I'm going to say it right now. Grant, I think, is on his way to his first Pro Bowl, but Alex Wright actually upped the ante on what his potential ceiling is for this year and some of the accolades he could be in line for.
He was awesome. I mean, there's a lot of superlatives on the defense, Scott, but man, Grant was flying around that whole safety position. But again, I could go up and down the roster, but yeah, Grant playing at a really high level, a leader for us, just great on and off the field. But man, he's playing physical.
I felt like he had a dominant game. I feel like he had an all-pro game. And we always talk about with Grant. Me and Grant have got closer over the years also, and just the fact of, seeing him grow up into the leader, not only verbally but as his play on the field and stuff like that, and just seeing him around in the locker room. He is one of those guys that, he may not talk all the time. He'll talk a little bit, here and there, he'll have his fun moments. But when it's time to work, it's time to work. And when you look at 9 in the back end, he's always doing the right thing. He's always around the ball. He's always, harping his teammates up. Just having that energy in the back end of when we need a spark or something like that, 9 is gonna make it happen. So just seeing him coming to fruition and just him being, this consistent and stuff like that, he's gonna have an all-pro year. So I can't wait to see that.
You heard the final comments there that he's going to have an all-pro year. Listen, I would love to see Grant become an all-pro. If he's playing at the level he's playing, it's going to be hard not to give him some of that recognition and that shine. And the nice thing is, as bad as the Browns are, I think record-wise, and as much as they're probably not on a lot of people's radars, the defense is so good. Like, they make them – you have to pay attention to the Browns because of their defense, or at least people who vote on those things and have say in those awards. They have to sort of know what's going on around the league, and you see this defense that's so good and the players that are making an impact. I mean, there's a chance this defense could walk away with multiple accolades. If Miles continues to do his thing, if he gets his sack numbers up, he's obviously going to be in the Defensive Player of the Year conversation. I already predicted before the season started that Carson Schlesinger is going to be Defensive Rookie of the Year. I think he's very much still on track for that. I even tweeted as much yesterday. And I think Grant certainly could be in line for an all-pro recognition, at least Pro Bowl recognition, if he keeps playing at the level he's playing at. And like I said, you heard Alex talk about his leadership. I think this defense feeds off of his play. He has taken on more as in like that leadership role. I think I think Grant also too, like Miles, is kind of like a lead by example guy on the field, where it's like, I'm going to show up and do my part, and I'm going to play hard, and you're going to see my energy, and you're going to feed off of that. And I think other guys are feeding off of it. And it all just goes back to, like I said, the way that Jim Schwartz, I want to say Greg Schwartz, different defensive coordinator for the Cleveland Browns at a very different time of this Browns franchise. But it all goes back to how Jim Schwartz is using him and how he's created opportunities for him to just, again, do his thing and be successful at it. And the blitzes he was calling yesterday, I mean, Jim doesn't always do that. He doesn't always send a lot of blitzing. He kind of relies on the front four to make those plays. But again, giving Miami a different look, giving them something they maybe didn't scout or see on tape that was different, and sending different guys, it worked to perfection. You get the 3 turnovers, really the 4 turnovers on the punch out, which was also Grant doing, committing that play on the special teams play. And Grant talked after the game about how much special teams is about effort and how he really, loves playing on those units because you can make an impact with just like 1 or 2 plays and how valuable that is. And he certainly did that yesterday on special teams as well. That guy's in line for some recognitions this year. And, I think the sky's the limit for him, certainly the way that Jim is sort of running this defense. But I can't say enough about him. I can't say enough about the disguised looks and the way that Greg, I keep saying Greg Schwartz, the way that Jim Schwartz really just masked things yesterday and tried to just confuse Tua. And listen, if they keep doing that, mixing and matching some of those things and don't just look so predictable, they moved Miles around yesterday. That was a big talking point. The fact that he was lining up like in the A gap, and then he would line up in the B gap, and then he'd line up outside in his normal spot, and then he'd line up on the left side. He was flipping all around and just kind of drawing different interest and attention and making the Dolphins have to account for him at all times. And now they got to also account for Grant Delpit potentially coming on a blitz as well. A player like Delpit being as versatile as he is helps Jim Schwartz immensely with the way that he calls plays, the way that he runs his defense. He's been special along with a number of guys on that side of the ball. We know how great that unit is, and they're going to need them to keep performing to that level if they're going to have a chance to sort of turn this season around. And hopefully Sunday can be a building block in that way, because I thought they played really well, anchored by Grant and some of the others obviously on that side of the ball. But can't highlight Grant enough because he's playing out of his mind right now, and he will be in line for some sort of accolades and recognition by season's end if he keeps this up. Another episode down with you, Dog Pound. Thank you for joining me as always to talk about your favorite football team. If you like what you heard, hit that subscribe button. Make Locked On Browns your first listen every day, wherever you get your podcasts, and at the Locked On Browns YouTube channel. You can also check out Locked On NFL for your second listen. Tyler the Madman Rowland gives you that shot of espresso to start your day. Tony Wiggins rounds things out with the barbershop. Find Locked On NFL on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. You can also, as I always like to tell you, keep it local. Check out Locked On Cavs. Season starts on Wednesday. Or Locked On Guardians. Thank you for being an everydayer at the Locked On Podcast Network. I'll talk to you again on Tuesday with Lance Reisland. See ya.